here with my lovely mother.
Hi, I'm Janette.
And today we're going to be going over the Canada Pavilion. So we've done a lot of the Epcot pavilions at this point, but Canada's one of the final ones we're doing, and there's still a few more left that we have to do that we haven't done yet, but we're almost through them all, which is kind of crazy. So the Canada Pavilion mixes the natural beauty of Canada with some of the British and French influences in its overall architecture. It has a canyon, a waterfall, and gardens, and a pool with some fountains. And these gardens are based on the Victoria Gardens, which are adjacent to the Hotel du Canada, which is inspired by the Bouchard Gardens near Victoria, British Columbia in Canada. And these gardens here in Canada are the largest, and they also say the most labor-intensive of all the national pavilions. Okay. So of all the pavilions, they have the largest gardens, and again, it takes like them the longest
well,
to
as I said, they do
gardens.
have a very big space. Like when you look at them, you realize it's in the front.
Yeah, because their gardens go back really far is the thing.
Yeah.
Because I would say in comparison, I suppose like the French pavilion has some gardens in it, as well as the UK pavilion.
Right.
And then there are also the other side of the pavilion is more of that rustic side of Canada. So it's like the rustic log cabin side with the totem poles.
Right.
So I feel like there's the two sides of it, of saying like here's the garden side with like the French and Canadian influences, and then the rustic more log cabin side.
Right, and then it's got the big stage on the side too, which even spreads it out a little bit.
Like what the theming of it is. And the stage is part of that more like the native
side,
the
right,
more
the
native theming
side
of the native people who lived in Canada before the French and British got there. So yeah, so the stage is part of that as well. So yeah, so it has the two sides of like the rustic side of it, and then the gardens and like the British French side of it, which is kind of interesting because it really splits the nation in two in that sense.
Yeah.
So Canada has a lot of different influences in it as well, just as a nation. The Hotel de Canada is on the right, whilst the English cottages are on the left, and there's also an iconic Gilbert Scott telephone box that stands to the side. And this is often where, again, like this is kind of supposed to be, this is like between the Canada Pavilion and the UK Pavilion, of course, since like, I guess technically Canada is a subject, or what is it? It's not a subject. It's part of the Commonwealth of the UK, right? Is that what it is?
Territory?
Yeah, I don't know what it is.
Whatever they call it, yeah.
Whatever the right terminology, but yeah, it's like a territory. It's part of the Commonwealth of the United Kingdom, which is always interesting because I kind of always forget that, honestly, that it's technically a part of that. I don't really know how the Commonwealth works as someone who did not grow up in the Commonwealth. We don't really learn about it in school.
We don't have that kind of,
So, all right, so some history. So prior to the construction of the pavilion, the Walt Disney Company sought financial support for the attraction from the Canadian government. However, the Canadian government didn't really have an interest in doing
Really?
this.
Okay, I'm surprised they went ahead with that. Okay.
The company, they wanted the federal government, the Canadian federal government, to fund the cost of the building and the attraction, but the government wanted more input on the design and layout of the pavilion, and basically Disney said no, because the Canadian government didn't like the stereotype that Disney was doing with like the more rustic side, like the lumberjack side of Canada, of saying
they wanted to go
like
more modern.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think that was like part of the problem with it, and so they didn't want Canada to be stereotyped, but I think Disney wanted to do like, I don't know, like what people would expect to see from Canada, or
and
like
I think it's really cool that they have that side of it.
I also think stereotypes are always based in the truth no matter what. So it's like, even though, I don't think they're exploiting a stereotype. I think they're just showing the culture of Canada, and that lumberjack, I say in quote, side is part of the culture of Canada.
Canada's a big country too, and as much
huge.
as they have as much as they have all of those modern cities that they have now, they still have that rustic.
Arguably, other than the U.S., it's the largest country in all the. Actually, China maybe is also as large. But
it's a
one
very
of the largest
big country.
countries
So
out of all the pavilions.
Yeah, they're not all modern.
So funding was refused by the Canadian government, and then Disney was threatening to pull the exhibit altogether, but ultimately they didn't, and they built it themselves.
I'm glad they kept it because it really is a nice pavilion.
So again, at one time during the planning, they really wanted it to be an actual like split between like a pavilion. So they really wanted to actually have like a sort of like the French pavilion, where it's like the little street shop, so to speak. So you'd walk through the street, to speak.
Yes.
Of having like the shops and restaurants of the French Canada side, and then the other side be more of like the English Canada side.
Right.
And so you can kind of still see that to this day how they were planning to split it, but they didn't do the full on like streets the way the French pavilion is.
Right.
And I wonder if that's because the French pavilion was being built around the same time, so they're like, oh, we're already kind of doing that one pavilion, or are we going to repeat it for this one?
Oh yeah, because then you're just repeating some of the culture.
Especially this was based off French Canada, so it's like the French pavilion and then the French Canadian part of the Canada would look the same. So they kind of like strayed away from that and went more of the garden route instead. So at the opening in 1982, the original music talent for the Canadian Pavilion was a trio called the Caledonian Pipe Band, and that consisted of 2 pipers and 1 drummer. And then they were recruited as well by another. They recruited by Ron Rodriguez, who was a talent coordinator for Walt Disney World from the Rosie O'Grady's Pipe Band of Orlando. And because all three had ties to Scotland, they also performed at the British Pavilion at various times as well. Now, I thought that was interesting because basically they had a band that was dedicated to that little stage space that's in Canada.
Yeah.
Now that stage space changes of like
they have different bands that play there, and some of the bands are really good.
Yeah, but back in the day, it was just the Caledonian Pipe Band. Like, so they were the only ones, and they were like the dedicated ones that they
I don't remember them at all.
In the 80s. Well, you didn't go in the 80s, did you? So.
I went once in the 80s, and then I didn't go again till the 90s. Yeah, so I don't remember. I would never have seen them.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about the totem poles. The pavilion opened with two Northwest Coast indigenous totem poles up to 30 feet in height, which is 9 meters in height, and they were initially constructed of fiberglass. Designed by Disney Imagineering, these icons used so they didn't want to build the totem poles to represent any specific nation of like indigenous peoples. They wanted to be a bit more general was the thing, and they were just trying to capture the spirit of the indigenous people on Canada's West Coast. And so a lot of this totem pole culture was more of the West Coast. I think that's the same in America as well, where a lot of the totem poles were also on the West Coast of America. And so in 1998, the park decided to add on a third totem pole, and this time they used wood, so it'd be a bit more authentic, which I thought was interesting that the first two were fiberglass.
I never noticed how many there were. I know they're there. Like if I think about in my mind, I can see them, but I don't remember that there were three. Okay.
The third totem pole was carved by Alaskan artist David A. Boxley in front of guests over a 2-month period and was officially put on display in April 1998. That's cool. Which is pretty cool, actually, that you could have gone and seen the totem pole.
See him actually making it and carving it and doing whatever.
The third totem pole also depicts 3 stories of the raven tricking the sky chief into the release of the sun, moon, and stars from each chest. Now I want to look at the totem poles again because I didn't know one of them was telling a story. I think the other first two
aren't all totem poles supposed to tell a story?
I think they do, but again, I think the first two aren't telling a story
because they tried to be general,
specific. Right. Yeah, I guess they didn't want to insult any specific indigenous people, so they were trying to make it more general. Which I feel like in that.
So the one that's made of wood is the one that would be telling the story. All right, we'll have to take a look at it next week.
And then in 2017, Disney commissioned Boxley to create 2 more poles to replace the original fiberglass ones. But I'm pretty sure the design stayed the same.
He just made them out of wood.
Just out of wood. So now they're all made out of wood, which makes sense. I don't know why they did the first ones in fiberglass to begin with. So yes, I'm not sure. I mean, like, obviously I would have seen it in 2017 when like they were not fiberglass. I would think the fiberglass was
probably machine made, where the wood one is human made.
Yeah, handmade.
Which takes more money, more time, more talent.
To invest into it, which, makes more sense, and they should have done that from the start. So. Right. Although it's kind of ironic that they had an Alaskan artist do this and not a Canadian artist. So, I mean, like, one thing there, it's like perhaps a Canadian artist should have done this, but I mean, like, Alaska is basically Canada.
Right.
It's like completely
I don't know if Canada would think that, but okay.
Or people in Alaska, I don't know. Yeah. So, a bit fishy there, but it's okay. Let's go into some dining options. So the main dining option in the Canada Pavilion is Les Celliers Steakhouse, and this is a sit-down restaurant service. The interior is to give the impression of a wine cellar, as the name suggests. It's also one of the smaller table service restaurants within the overall World Showcase. The food offerings include seafood and steaks, along with popular Canadian wines and beer. It's located in the main building of the pavilion, which is funny they consider that to be the main building of the pavilion. The hotel
kind of goes underneath. Yeah, it kind of goes off to the side. You come in from the side.
I consider the shopping by the totem poles to be the main building because I feel like those are the most easily accessible.
Yeah.
Whereas like the Hotel du Canada, which is modeled after Chateau Laurier Hotel in Ottawa, you have to go through the whole gardens to get there. It's like it's really in the pavilion, even though that is considered the main building. I guess it's the largest building when you look at it from the outside technically, but I don't know, I just wouldn't have thought that. So the building is presented with an aid of forced perspective to look as it is 6 stories high, but it's actually only 3 stories high. And the restaurant was actually a cafeteria style dining hall when it first opened.
Oh, wow.
And then it was transformed into a table service. And they did say it actually really is a cellar because it's located beneath the chateau.
I was going to say, you go down underneath the building.
Yeah, and again, it was designed to be like a wine cellar with the simulated stone arches and the dark ambient lighting, but you do kind of like dip down a little bit. So I don't think you're fully underground, but
you go down a hill to get into it, and you feel like you're going in under like a cave when you go in.
Yeah, so it is supposed to feel like the beneath, which is kind of cool. And also in the Canada Pavilion, there is a popcorn cart that sells popcorn, although it's like the maple popcorn, which is why I never get it. I don't love maple syrup that much, honestly, so I'm not a big maple syrup person.
Right.
And then they have a bunch of Canadian beers on draft, such as Moosehead Lager, La Fin du Monde, and Labatt's Blue and Blue Light. I don't know any of these beers as I do not drink beer. There is also technically a poutine booth that's also part of the Canadian Pavilion.
Is that open all the time, or is it only open during the festivals?
It's only open during festivals, which is why it's not technically part of the Canadian Pavilion. It's more of a festival booth, but it's basically in the Canadian Pavilion.
Right, it's right there.
The poutine.
Right.
And poutine is a huge thing in Canada.
Oh, God, yeah. Well, they have it on the menu, too, in the restaurant.
Yeah. So it's like, I know we had it one time when we ordered the poutine to try it. And poutine is not for me. I don't think I'm not a big gravy person is the thing. So
well, if I'm going to eat my fries and something else, I want them separated. I don't like my fries with stuff on them.
From the start, I kind of knew I'm just not a big gravy person. So I knew I wasn't going to like love it from the very start.
Yeah, it kind of makes the fries more soggy and more like a base as opposed to a fry. So
it's one of those things where it's like for any sauce, whatever you're eating the sauce with, like that item is just the vessel for the sauce. So it's like you have to want to eat the sauce and then you're eating the vessel. Like it's like even pasta sauce. The pasta is just the vessel for the sauce. You eat it. Right. Or else most people don't eat the sauce by itself.
Right.
And the gravy sauce does nothing for me. So I'd rather just eat the French fry. And Les Celliers French fries are very good. All right, let's talk about some shopping. So they have a bunch of shopping, a lot of carts, I would say, right in the front. So they have multiple little like carts like selling
Canadian themed stuff.
Plushies, like Disney plushies too.
And they're
like
cute
Disney
too. All their stuff is cute because it's all moose and cute little animals. They're really cute when you look at them.
So they have the Northwest Mercantile that sells wilderness-themed Christmas ornaments and a variety of animal plushies, maple syrup, and a selection of Canadian wines and ice wines. And this is located inside that Trading Post building, like right by the totem poles.
Right.
And it's designed to look like a traditional West Coast native longhouse. It is really cool when you're in there. They do have a lot of cool stuff. My mom actually almost bought the Canadian Santa when we were there last time.
Oh, I know. He was so cool.
They had a really cool Canadian Santa. And I guess they sell that year because we were there in December, but I guess they do sell that year.
I would think that because I have Santas that I've bought, for different places that I keep them out all year on my shelves, international Santas. So I think they must sell it all year long.
Yeah, they probably do.
Because they sell all their winter stuff all year long.
Yeah, well, this one says they sell like Christmas stuff. And I was like, oh, I didn't realize that was just, always year long. Because some of the other pavilions don't sell Christmas stuff year long.
No, they just put it out at Christmas time.
Because the Canadian Santa did look really cool. It's a really nice.
It was very cool. I really looked at it for a long time.
Yeah. And of course, we have those wood carts as well outside. And then one of the things that you can do is have your name engraved on a genuine leather bracelet, on like one of those like cuff bracelets, which is kind of cool. And so, because I feel like when I was younger, I loved those engraving stands.
They do that in Mexico too.
Yeah, it's like I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And now it's like I don't really wear jewelry like that, but it's still pretty cool though. All right, and then let's go to the attractions. So in 2007, Disney updated the movie Oh Canada, which was filmed in 1979. For several years, the Canadian Tourism Commission lobbied to have the movie updated, partly to remove some outdated stereotypes of Canadian life. On August 31st, 2007, the updated edition opened with the new host, Canadian actor Martin Short, and Canadian Idol winner Eva Avila reprising the original film's theme song, Canada, You're a Lifelong Journey. The attraction then closed in late 2019 to make a few more adjustments for the new update, and then Canada Far and Wide opened in 2020. And again, Canada Far and Wide is what we currently have as well to this day. So you can go see the 360 Canada Far and Wide. I have not seen this show, I would say, in years.
No, because we
honestly,
tend to not go to the... I can't go to a 360 theater. Yeah, it really makes me dizzy.
Yeah, for us, a lot of the pavilions have the 360 shows, and none of us are really big fans of the 360 shows. So
which is good for them because it does give you a sense. Like when you're standing there and they have those big screens, it's like being in, like, when they do the IMAX, kind of thing. But it just makes me dizzy.
I fully agree. So fully agree.
Right.
But yeah, so maybe one day we'll have to stand for... That's the thing, you have to stand when you watch these shows.
Right, you're standing for the whole show. Plus you're getting dizzy.
I don't want to stand. I'm lazy. I don't want to be standing throughout these shows. So that's another tick that it's like we
get enough of the shows. Canadian culture just by going through the shops and the restaurants.
And then, of course, as we talked about before, the Canadian Mill Stage also has the local Canadian bands play intermittently. And again, those bands tend to change. So I guess I was interesting. They used to have like singular bands that played all the time.
Yeah.
But now the bands change, especially during the festivals. They always have different bands that will come and play. And it's one of those things you just kind of have to be there and then find out who's playing.
Right.
So there isn't really any place to try to figure out when the next
there's a little bit of
band's
seating in
coming
front, which is nice.
I'm sure the bands themselves promote on their social medias, like when they're performing.
When they're
going to
perform there.
You'd have to know the bands.
You have to know the band's names, yes. We're not really into
But I do
that
love
kind
the
of
Canadian Mill Stage. I think it's one of the better stages they have. It's really cute. And I love that it's right out there as well, like as you're walking by.
Well, yeah, because even if you're walking by, you can stand, you can stop, you can listen, you can go. You're not stuck, Yeah, no, definitely.
All right, and then the last little section we have here is some hidden Mickeys. So just outside the Northwest Mercantile, there is the largest totem pole in the Canadian Pavilion. And there is a hidden Mickey just underneath the elbow of set of arms near the top of hole. Just inside Les Celliers Steakhouse, there is a counter where one would check for their meal. But behind that counter is the small wine storage room. And the very top rack are 3 bottles of wine that make the familiar shape of Mickey. I have seen that one before. I noticed that as well. I feel like that's an easy one to just do it with like wine bottles. So I noticed that.
You see it. You say, oh, look at that. It makes a Mickey.
And then the final one is there's a hidden Mickey that was on the fish in the Mercantile that's created by cast members in 2002. And then it was removed in 2019. And then an updated fish was created by an artist from Dieppe, New Brunswick, and received approval by Disney Imagineering and was placed in 2023. Yeah, so 3 hidden Mickeys. It's funny because like this is all from the Wikipedia Wikipedia page. The other Wikipedia pages for the pavilions did not have anything on hidden Mickeys.
Oh, really?
So
Okay.
that's why I was just like, well, I'll definitely include this section since it's like,
that's
we might as well
interesting
talk
because
about
all the
hidden
pavilions
Mickeys.
have them.
I'm sure they do.
Every
you know,
pavilion I think has
it's one of those things where it's like they have to be there somewhere. But
we have. I don't know if Luke took his book with him, but if he has it in his room, we're gonna have to go back and look and see if it has a thing about pavilions in that. Find the hidden Mickeys.
Okay. Yeah. So I just thought that was interesting that this is like was on the Wikipedia. So yeah, but that was kind of the main things I had for the Canada Pavilion. Like I said, I couldn't find a whole lot on it overall.
Well, I think maybe probably because the federal government of Canada was not involved in it. Mickey did, Disney did it all themselves. They probably don't have that much history that's going back.
I guess it could have gone into
they
more
tried to
history
pay
on some of
homage, and even in the beginning, like you said, they tried to be generic when it came to the totem pole. So that kind of probably did anything. But I have to say, is for a pavilion, it doesn't get a lot of like the Canada Pavilion. Like when people talk about the pavilions, they talk about France, they talk about this, they talk about that.
Yeah, it's kind of one of the underrated pavilions.
Yeah, but I think it's really cool because it is cool to go in there and see the like you said, the old fashioned side. The clothes alone in there are amazing. They because it's for skiing. I mean, all this, and I even last time we were in there, I made Dad buy a jacket in there. He needed a rain jacket. His was falling apart.
You actually bought the rain jacket in Norway.
Oh, is that Norway? Yeah. Oh, I thought it was Canada. Because Canada also has all of that heavy stuff that, when you look at it and you say, oh my God, it's so pretty. But, we don't get those kind of winters anymore. So to buy it, it's just harder to do. So I really like Canada. Yeah, like I said, I think it's underrated next to the other pavilion.
For sure. No, I definitely agree. Well, now we can go into some Disney news. So we are pre-recording a few episodes today. So I'm splitting up the Disney news within the 3 episodes. So there is more Disney news, but we're not going all over all of it because we're going to save some of the other things for the other episodes. But first, at the Seas with Nemo and friends, they have welcomed 2 new manatees, Minnow and Cider.
Yeah, can't wait to see
them.
They
are both being rehabilitated and will eventually be released back into the wild. So Cider is recovering from a wound. It didn't say what his wound was, but I think actually they're both girls. I think Cider, she's recovering from a wound, and they just said that Minnow needs to gain weight. So I don't know why she was underweight or
she's
like what happened.
She's probably hungry.
But they said that she needs to gain weight. So they're both in there right now on I think there was a third manatee, but that third manatee is not on display. So the third manatee is like backstage. So I don't know what's going on.
I love to watch manatees, so I can't wait to see them again.
Yeah, so 2 new manatees, Minnow and Cider. And speaking of animals, Boxo is still causing a chaos at the animal kingdom.
I can't wait to see him.
People have reported waiting over an hour to see him. So Boxo is the new little baby tiger that's in Animal Kingdom. He's out on the Maharaja track with his mom, Sani. And so again, people waiting like over an hour for the Maharaja trek, and you only get 5 minutes in front of the case. And because, Boxo and Sani, they have free will, they're not always out in front of like the glass. So they could be on the inside portion, they could be hiding behind the bushes or something. So you're not guaranteed to see him when you go. Although it seems like most people are seeing him since he's still so young, so he's very playful.
He's very playful.
So he tends to be out. And Disney did say they were unprepared for the amount of guests who wanted to see him. Like they were not prepared to have like such crowds coming to
because we've been through that trek. There's hardly anybody there.
Yeah, I know, which is kind of crazy. But at the same time, I feel like Disney should have realized that it was going to be such a big thing because it's a baby tiger.
Because the animals always attract the people.
Especially the babies. And I think, too, it's like, because even for the baby elephants, for instance, people get really excited over the baby elephants, but they are on the ride. So I feel like you can't really gauge that people are just going on Kilimanjaro Safari to see like baby Cora. The baby elephant Cora. So it's like you're kind of going on the ride. So it's not clear. Whereas like it's very clear that people are just going the Maharaja trek just to see the baby tiger. Right. Yeah, like it's very obvious. Right. So in that sense, it's like, Disney was unprepared apparently, and that's where they started doing the lines, and I think they have like a whole queue person now there that helps monitor the lines. Kind of crazy. So if anything though, Disney knows how to monitor a line.
Yes, they do. So we'll see. If I got to wait an hour and not know, I don't know if I'll stand online and according to what it's like. But if I'm in the Animal Kingdom,
well, if you think about it, the line is through the trek, so it's like as you're online, you'd still see
you're still seeing
exhibits.
Stuff, right? So I thought the trek was very nice. We did a whole thing on that when we when we went last time, and I thought the trek was really good. We hadn't been there in a long time because you tend to miss it if. First of all, according to the weather, if it's hot.
Also, where you enter it is all the way back by Kali River Rapids. So you really have to walk into the park to go. It's like, it's not casually that you'd walk by it. Right. Unless you're a big Kali River Rapids person, which we're not big Kali River Rapids.
And I don't think people know how much is actually in there.
Yeah, like how cool it is. I think that's one of I think that's the best like walk-through trek, honestly.
Yes, it was very good. We enjoyed every minute of it. Yeah. And I think now, because the animals there, it's drawing people back there. As soon as that tiger grows up, it'll go back to where it was.
Well, I think people are still excited just to see the tigers in a general sense. But yeah, so Boxo's there, and I think everyone's excited to see Boxo.
I hope I get to see him.
Disney California Adventure is having their Food and Wine Festival from February 28th to April 21st. So there are a lot of new food items for the Disney California Adventure Food and Wine Festival. It's funny because it's pretty short. It's only like 2 months, which compared to like Walt Disney World, our festivals are like months long, and there's just only 2 months. So I'm like, oh, okay, look at that. That's fun. That's cute. There's a new Prince Charming Regal Carousel popcorn bucket, and it has like the moving parts, so the carousel kind of moves around. It's very cute. The Cake Bake Shop has added a peanut butter pie to its bakery case. It's getting very good reviews. Honestly, the cakes always get good reviews. They're just very expensive as all. Right. So, but the peanut butter pie did look pretty good. I have made a peanut butter pie before, so it just looks like 3 times the size as the one I made. So, like, I can't imagine what their dishes look like when they bake these cakes, because they must be massive. The Flower and Garden Festival is starting very soon at the end of February. So this is in Epcot, of course. There are 2 new confirmed booths, the Yacht Grub and the Beach Grub, which will have new fresh seafood flavors. And also for the Flower and Garden Festival, there are new Moana topiaries that will debut this year. And they are also bringing back the Phineas and Ferb topiaries that used to be part of the festival way back when. So bringing those back probably because they're doing like the reboot of Phineas and Ferb. So they're coming back for this spring into summer as well. So that's fun. And last but not least, here we have that the Philadelphia Eagles won the Super Bowl this year. So Jalen Hurts was parading around Magic Kingdom for the Super Bowl win. So that was really cool to see. There was some criticism on this because in past years when the Kansas Chiefs won, the float that they like stood on was really decorated, had all these ribbons and balloons and Kansas Chiefs colors and everything. And for Jalen Hurts, there was nothing on his float. It was just him. People were like, wow, they couldn't even get a green balloon and like tie it to his float or something like that. It was like just him by himself on his float with like no decor or anything.
He walked around so nice, waving at everybody, talking to everybody. He went on Tron.
Yeah, so a lot of Eagles fans were like, wow, Disney just like did not care, I guess.
They didn't care that
they did not prepare
their Jalen. Okay.
Yeah, they did not get, I guess maybe they weren't expecting them to win, or they had stuff
but
from
still,
years past.
Disney could get anything done if
but
they
they're
wanted
saying
to.
they're just like, yeah, wow, they did not decorate the float
I didn't even
at
notice.
all for the Philadelphia
I didn't
Eagles.
notice.
And it's only obvious because last year the Kansas Chiefs one was so overly decorated that it looked, like it was all like red and white, and this year there was just nothing. It's just a regular float and Jalen Hurts standing on top of it. Jalen Hurts is known to be a very reserved man, and so it's funny when he was asked in an interview, how was your time in Disney? He just said Disney was fine, but everyone was saying, he's like, no, that's a great praise from Jalen Hurts. He's not a very outspoken type of man.
No, he's very, 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 very reserved, very quiet.
He's very serious.
They even make a joke when he smiles because they said, oh, he's smiling. He doesn't usually smile. He's very serious, very, 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 very quiet. When he talks, you have to really listen because he's very, very quiet.
People are like, the high praise, Disney was fine.
Disney was
what
fine.
He said being part of the parade. So. And the last little thing I have here is that during the Super Bowl, one of the very first ads of the Super Bowl was the live action Stitch taking over the Super Bowl. So they had a whole little scene of Stitch coming out, running across the field, like causing some chaos and people trying to run after him and everything. It was very cute. People really loved that ad. It was a huge fan favorite among Disney, among people who aren't even Disney fans, just Stitch fans. A lot of people are saying now they're very excited for the live action Lilo and Stitch as well, which is great to see. What's funny is that we've seen the live action Stitch a few times now. Like they've like hinted at him of what he looks like, what the animation's looking like. But I'm really curious to see what the other aliens are going to look like.
Right, yeah.
There are some interesting aliens in the Lilo and Stitch movie, everyone. And it's like,
what
are
they
those
doing
dudes?
without making them creepy?
One guy has 6 eyes. The other one has 1 eye.
I know.
It's like, what are these
They
things
look cute when they're
like?
in animation, but I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. Like, how creepy are we going to get with these aliens? I don't know.
Okay,
so
this should be interesting.
Yeah, that's what I'm curious to see. Like, you knew Stitch was probably going to look fine because at the end of the day, he's kind of just like a small dog or like a large cat.
Yeah, stuffed animal, like moving around.
So I'm curious to see what those aliens are going to look like. So that'll be the real test of CGI. Right, Morocco? My cat Morocco is coming to say hello, right? Okay, now she's going to bite me. So now she's being evil.
She's like, you're busy and I want my attention.
Yes. All right, so now we can do some Disney birthdays. There are actually no Disney birthdays this week, and there are no personal birthdays either in our lives. So now we just have our final segment, which is our Disney memory. So do you have a Disney memory for today's podcast? It's funny, we have a whole podcast episode on Les Celliers, of course, because it is a very good
that's what pops into my head as soon as you say Disney memory is all of our, we love the food in there, but my memory is that every time we go there, we have a problem with seating.
Well, the last time we went there was fine.
Yeah,
was
last time we went, actually got right, in on time.
2 times we went there, we had very poor experiences sitting down to the seat, like the hosting type of area of like waiting. Like for instance, I think we had reservations for 4:30 and we didn't sit down until 6.
Yeah.
So an hour and a half is a long time.
And that was like
wait.
an hour and a half of everybody screaming because it was raining outside.
Everyone
and we
was
couldn't go anywhere and everybody was pissed. So so when you say Disney memory, I always try to tailor it to what we're talking about. And to tell you the truth, like I said, my Disney memory memory is when you start talking about the totem poles and stuff. I just remember Canada, like just hanging out, just sitting there.
Well, you've also spent way more time in Canada than I have in real life. So.
Well, yeah, I have been to Canada a couple of times, but when I go to Canada in Disney, it doesn't remind me of where I've been in Canada. So it's different than what I remember seeing it. And that's why I think because they have the older version, it makes a difference. But my memory is really just, hanging out. And the last time we were there, the band was playing on the stage. And I got to say that it drew a crowd. And I thought it was really good. And something I hadn't remembered a lot was the fact that they do have these really good bands now that come and work on that stage. Just like now they have really good bands that go and play behind the UK Pavilion.
Yeah,
back on that street. That's
and that one's much more hidden. So
yes, that one's much more hidden. You don't really know they're playing back there until you hear them.
Yeah.
Where here, I remember going by and saying, "Wow, this is really cool. They're really getting some good entertainment here." So really, when you say memory, that's what the memory is for Canada. I think it's underrated because when you do get there, I say to myself, "This is a nice pavilion."
I know it's hard because all my memories are really tied to Les Celliers for the most part. But I'll say the food there is great. I love their bread. They have this pretzel bread and they have this sourdough multigrain bread. Both breads are so good. Amazing bread. Love the bread.
Yeah, the bread is still the same.
It is a steakhouse.
Yes.
So because of that, I'm a vegetarian. But their food is all good there. Like I always say, I've gone to many steakhouses even as a vegetarian. And the sides at steakhouses are always the best, honestly. Their mac and cheese, phenomenal. So
that's
good.
where Amanda gets her
We've
standards.
had their Brussels sprouts before too, which are also super good as well. Their French fries.
The only
are
complaint
really
I have
good.
about Les Celliers is they used to have a lunch and a dinner menu. And the lunch menu, you could go in.
There used to be a burger, right?
They would have burgers. They would have other things, lighter, like one or two lighter fares, because it was lunchtime. You could get away with eating there and having like a lighter fare dinner as opposed to having a full steak or whatever that they, the heavy stuff. So I think their menu changed a little bit. And what they went to was all day dining. So now, no matter what time you go, even if it's like the late lunch.
Probably because it's easier for the kitchen to have
yes,
that.
it's
which
easier
I get,
for them,
but,
right, to plan.
But it's hard because that's heavy food. Like if you're eating a steak or a pork chop or something in the middle of the day, like that's a lot of food to eat.
Yes, that's what I did. I remember, and actually the memory that makes me think about it was, if you remember when we went for your high school.
We did, yeah. We
that
went
was
with my
just
best friend Shannon for lunch, and when we sat down, we looked at the menu. There was like nothing for us to eat.
Yeah, they were not saying anything, and me and Joe were looking at each other.
And that was 11 years ago.
Yes, 11 years ago, and it was right after they changed the menu because we didn't expect it to be.
Yeah.
And we sat down and said, "What'd they do?" And it was all day dining, and it was all the heavy stuff, no hamburgers, no anything. And we're looking at.
I guess I would have eaten steak because I don't.
At that time you would have, but we were in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
Nobody wanted steak. We wanted hamburgers and the bread and the French fries and the whatever. And it was so funny because Joe and I looked at each other and we looked at the kids and we said to them, "Is there anything on this menu you want to order?" And they looked up and said, "Nope."
Yeah, so we just left.
We got up and left. Yeah. We said, "Nope, we have to leave." We got up and left because they changed the menu without telling us. So that was the bigger menu. But once we started talking about the food, that's the bigger memory.
Yeah, but let us know, what is your favorite part of the Canadian Pavilion? So is it like the decor that's there? Is it the little maple leaves that are on the fence by the World Showcase?
Yes.
Is it any of the merchandise you can buy there? Is it the food? Is it the show? We'd love to hear your thoughts about the Canadian Pavilion. We will have a dedicated Instagram post on the Instagram Almost Amanda X. It will also be linked in the description below. And make sure you leave us a comment or a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or if you're listening on YouTube. So we do have a brand new YouTube channel. At this point, we have been putting out the episodes, again, like once a day, basically. So by the time this episode comes on YouTube, it'll be like April, honestly. So it'll be quite some time. Yeah, but we have a brand new YouTube channel. So make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. There's lots of episodes that are coming out there from basically the archive, so to speak. That's been super fun to